In this video, I'm going to walk through an in-depth demo of Cassidy so you could see everything that the platform has to offer, all the main features. So let's dive right in. So here I am on the Cassidy home screen. This is a demo account called Sprinter Software Group, which sells legal CRM software to lawyers. But to start, there's three main components to Cassidy. There's our AI chat assistants, there's our AI workflows and automations, and then there's the knowledge base. And the knowledge base is where you can bring in all that contextual information about your company. So to dive in here to show you the knowledge base, here I am in the knowledge base. I have a bunch of different collections in here, but the knowledge base is filled with information about my company. So I've given it access to certain folders in my Google Drive, my Notion, my Confluence. This is where I can imbue it with previous case studies, my previous RFPs, my help documents, my internal HR information. It's super easy to organize, have specific permissioning, but this allows you to basically power the AI assistants and automations throughout the rest of the product is all based on the information that you can provide in the knowledge base. We'll dive more into that a little bit later, but I want to jump in here. Here I am on the home screen. I have a bunch of different assistants here. Now, these assistants are all custom made for the organization. So your assistants might be different based on the use cases that you're going after. But I'm going to show you a few high-level assistants. So to jump in here, I'm going to start with this internal HR assistant. Now, this HR assistant is attached to all of our internal HR information, our employee handbook, things like that. So when I come in here and I could say something like, what is our vacation policy? And you can see just by saying that, this assistant now goes off and searches through all of our HR information to answer that question. So it starts answering the question and it cites all of its sources. So I could see exactly where the information is being pulled from. So in this case, it's a Google Doc with our vacation policy. So if I click on it, I'm taken directly to where that information lives. So in this case, it's a Google Doc, so that's where I go. You can really have access to any information you want, but this is just the start of the assistants. The best thing about these assistants is you can actually bring them with you anywhere online. So for instance, here I am inside my Gmail. Let's say I receive an email asking questions about our data policies, our pricing, things like that. We actually have the Cassidy browser extension, so I could just pop this extension open. I could use something like our sales support assistant, which is an assistant that's specifically trained on all the information a salesperson would need, as well as how we respond to questions when they come in. And I could just say, reply to this email. And just like this, the sales support assistant can go off, find the answer to all these questions that were associated with that email. And it can also respond in a way of how we like to respond to our customers, because we've actually trained it on our brand voice as well. So it knows how we like to respond. So you can see here, it's responding to that just like that. Now, if I jump back into the assistants tab, inside the assistants, I have access to all the various assistants that I create. I actually also have access to ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, all the major language models that I could just use. They work directly the same that they would in any of the other model providers. But these are just all baked into Cassidy, and we don't do any future model training. It's entirely secure. Now, these assistants are super easy to customize. So here I am in the assistants tab. I have a bunch of different assistants in here. But if I go to like that sales support assistant that I just showed, you can see I actually can choose the model I wanted to use. I can continue to provide it instructions on how I want it to respond to customers, things like that. I could actually give it that brand voice. So I could give it examples of my previous writing style so it knows exactly how to sound like us. And then I can actually even give it and choose what parts of the knowledge base that this assistant should have access to. You can also actually even deploy these assistants to all different sorts of locations like Microsoft Teams, Slack. You could deploy it via an API. But you can see if I have Slack open, I have a few of my assistants deployed directly in here. So people can come into Slack, ask questions directly, and you can see it works exactly the same. So you can deploy these assistants anywhere. So that's a quick high-level overview of assistants. We'll dive in a little bit more on some other features in a bit, but I want to jump into workflows. So workflows are where you can actually have more end-to-end automation. You don't need to just chat with these assistants. You can actually have them go off and do things for you. So inside the templates tab, we actually have a whole bunch of specific templates that you could try out just to give you ideas of what is possible with workflows. But if I jump into the top one, here's a competitive analysis report. So that basically this workflow, all I do is throw in a competitor's URL. It searches online reviews of the competitor. It scrapes their website and it writes up products and service offerings. and ultimately generates a competitive analysis report, all just from a competitor's URL. So if I go into edit workflow, you can see I can fully customize exactly what I want this workflow to do, all the prompts, every step of this. So it's super easy for me to just throw in a URL here, click run workflow, and it will go through all those steps. So I'm going to just take in, our URL here from Cassidy. We'll throw this here. We'll click run workflow. It's going to start running. I'm going to pause for a second. And you can see it starts going through every step of this workflow. It scraped our website. It wrote the description of the company. It wrote up the product and services. It wrote up the strengths and weaknesses. So every step in this workflow is run just from that one URL. So it can do all of that. Now that's just actually a basic workflow. You can actually do a lot more with these workflows. You can have them go off and do things even while you're not working. So if I go back to our workflows, here's a library of a bunch of workflows that I have created, but I'm going to show you one here where this is actually a new lead enrichment workflow. And so this is actually set up on a webhook and attached to our website. So every time someone signs up, we get their email and first and last name. We take that information and use our LinkedIn block, which then goes find that person online. It finds their LinkedIn, it scrapes their LinkedIn and summarizes it. It writes up a description of their company simply based off of what we know about their email. It then adds that enriched information to our HubSpot. So if I go into our HubSpot here, you can see if I signed up, it actually adds all that information about me directly into our HubSpot. Then from there, it actually writes a personalized email to me directly using our sales and support assistant. So remember that assistant that responds to that email, it uses that because that assistant's trained on all the information about our company, how we respond to our customers, to actually generate a customized introduction email, all generated by AI and utilizing that information about the person that we found online to customize it. And then it also shoots me a message in our new lead Slack channel. So you can see how you could build these really comprehensive workflows to automate pretty much anything. Now, it's super easy to build these workflows. If I go to the workflow tab and I click create new workflow and I click this custom setup button here and I just say, I want a workflow that every Monday at 9 a.m. it searches the latest news in AI, so that's our industry, but put anything you want in there. Write up a report on the latest news and then send it to me on email. So I basically, in a one sentence line, have been able to create a customized, essentially a newsletter that's going to be automatically sent to me after it goes and searches online. So you can see how you could generate these workflows just by writing out in plain English what you want it to do, and then it can go off and create that workflow for you. So now we have that workflow created. It searches on a scheduled trigger every Monday. It searches the latest news in AI. It writes that report, and then it sends it to me on email. And I can even select it to a few different team members on my team to make sure that everybody has access to it. Now, all these plus buttons make it super easy to customize the workflow further. So we have all different types of building blocks, a bunch of different integrations that you can use to manipulate and create an AI workflow that's hyper specific to what you need at your company. Now, the benefit of a Cassidy platform where we have it very horizontal, super customizable, is it could be used to set up specifically to the workflows you need as a company. So let's say I want to use Cassidy to help us with RFPs, RFIs, security questionnaires. So I'm actually going to create a new chat here, and I actually have an RFP assistant. So here's an RFP response assistant, which I've trained on how we want to respond to RFPs. It's attached to previous RFPs that we've responded to. So when I say something like, what is our data policies? Something like that can be asked in an RFP. It's going to generate a response, so it allows me to just copy and paste that and throw that directly in our RFP. You can see it cites its sources, so I know it's come and being pulled from previous RFPs we filled out here. So this is an RFP that we've completed prior. I can even open up our editor directly in the chat, throw this in the editor, manipulate it, make it better as we want it to. And we have this kind of response here. But let's say I want to fill out a whole bunch of RFPs at one time, right? So this is a great co-pilot. I can use this directly in the browser extension. I could be working directly with an RFP. But let's say I have this whole RFP. For instance, let's say I have an RFP that looks like this, right? Every RFP comes in a different format with a bunch of different questions. Well, you can actually use Cassidy to complete the entire RFP end to end. So let's walk through that. So I actually have a workflow here. I'm going to go back to the workflow tab. I'm going to go to the RFP question response workflow. And now I'm actually going to show you the bulk run tab. So the bulk run tab allows you to complete different tasks in bulk. So I'm going to create a new view here. So we're working on a new RFP. Great. I'm going to use our smart import feature, which can automatically look at the document that I've imported. So in this case, it's an RFP. So I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to drag in that RFP I just showed you. Click extract data. It pulls out and finds all the questions that we would need to fill out, right? It uses AI to find those questions as our smart import. I click import all of that. Now I have all of these in our workflow. And so I can actually use this workflow. So I can click run all and run this entire page for it to actually go off and just complete this RFP entirely for me. So it's using a search knowledge base block in our workflow, and then it's actually generating the response. So you can see it's creating all those responses. I can edit this as I want. I can even remove the citations in our workflow. But you can see how easy it is to be able to fill out these RFPs in bulk. When I'm all done, I could easily just go ahead and export it. So you can see how you can use and fill out RFPs as an assistant co-pilot if that's your preferred method, or you could fill out an RFP in bulk using something like our workflow. Now, something you might be wondering is, well, we have a lot of information in our knowledge base. What if specific things are out of date? Well, we have our knowledge verification feature. So you can actually pop this open at any time, and you can actually mark certain information as out of date. So you could be like, let's flag this as out of date. Be like, hey, I think this is something that we filled out a couple of years ago. Can someone take a look at this? And it can actually send a message to the admin of the account being like, hey, this person flagged this information out of date. Is this out of date? And then that could be deranked in going forward for future RFPs when you use that assistant, which is a really great feature to make sure that your information is always up to date. You don't have to worry about what if I just feeded everything and then some stuff's out of date, some stuff's confusing. It can actually refine and get better with time. Additionally, touching back on that bulk run feature, you could run that bulk run with any workflow you want. So this is a workflow that takes in the URL of a blog post and it goes through, creates the blog post, generates the Instagram post, generates a Facebook post. All these prompts are custom. You customize the model. But then we could actually go to the bulk run tab. I could just throw in the URLs of 100 blog posts that our company wrote and just auto do all of that work in one go. It's super easy to fill out and complete things in bulk. Now, before we wrap up, I want to talk about one last thing, which is all about kind of our permissioning and security in Cassidy. So to kick off, Cassidy does no model training on any of the information that you put into Cassidy. So because we use all these other third-party providers for our foundational models, we use their enterprise APIs, and none of that data is used for model training. We're also SOC 2 compliant. And when you talk about a larger enterprise rollout, every square inch of Cassidy has all sorts of permissioning baked into it. So you can make it so only people who should have access to things have access to things. In this case, this knowledge base of marketing, only the marketing team has access to it. And I could specify exactly who on our team should be a part of that. That goes along with assistance, with workflows, every part of the product. You could specify what parts of the Cassidy that these people should have access to. That's an in-depth demo of Cassidy, some of the main high-level features that we offer. There's a lot more. The platform has a lot of other capabilities, but I'm excited for you to dive in and explore Cassidy further. Hopefully this demo gave you a good overview of what's possible, and happy automating.